And here we are. We
back.
have reached another Friday Fun Day. It's been a while. We had a couple of weeks break, and now we're back and better than ever. It's been busy. It's the last week of July 2026, entering the last week. It's like I don't even know. I don't even know. I don't even know what's going on, what's happening, where all the time's slipping by. It's crazy. How are you doing this Friday Fun Day?
I am a little beat up this morning. I'm, you know, I'm going to be one of those old men that just constantly complains about his ails, about his aches and pains. That's
Yeah.
where I'm headed. That's my future. But yeah, no, this workout this morning has got me just a little woozy, little woozy. But on a good note, how about this beautiful weather we got today? Like it's
Yep.
high of 72 degrees in
I saw that.
July in St. Louis is crazy. I love
Yeah.
it.
And then tomorrow it's supposed to be 92, by the way, and then upwards of 100 the next day. So,
You know,
yeah, it's easy come, easy go, I suppose, right? But yeah,
thanks for ruining my day. I mean, I just, yeah, no, no, I'm good, man. We're heading into the weekend, and we're gonna go look at another property here on Sunday. And
yep,
this is potentially another one for us to add to the portfolio, and it's
yeah,
another new build. It's a brand new build. Nobody's even lived in this one. The last one we bought, somebody lived there for what, 3 weeks, something like.
three, yeah, 3 months, I think it was.
Oh, was
Yeah, very short.
yeah,
Yeah, very short time. But yeah, this one's another one. And you said, like, yeah, we have a pipeline. So that was a direct seller finance one. And so this is what doing what you say you're going to do continues to pay off.
yeah,
Because that guy that we did that deal with, that direct seller financed it to us, he called, like, just out of the blue. Actually, he contacted us when we were down in Cabo, and he said, "Hey, I got this deal." So when we got back, I called him and he said, "I got this deal. Basically, same thing, same builder, same new construction." He goes, "I just decided to buy another one." It's like, okay. So yeah, so we could be interested in like kind of a similar deal. He said, "Yeah, we can work that out." It's like,
yeah.
sure,
I mean, we got good terms. He got good terms.
yeah,
Everybody's happy. We did hold on to that one a little bit longer. It was vacant a little bit longer than
thank you. Yeah,
we wanted. Um, so this one we're going to be extra careful with, but I think this one I just by the looks of this one, it appears that um, I'm going to like this one a little bit better than the last one. But
yeah.
and I would,
And yeah, well, the bottom line of the other one is like 460 a month on the cash flow,
yeah,
so it worked out. This one, so yeah, but
yeah,
might be able to do this one a little better. You're right.
yeah. All right. Well, what are we getting into today?
Well, we have talked many times in the past. So you set me up. It took me a second because usually I'm the one in there, but
Turned it.
you reversed the whole thing.
Rolls.
We talked about different liens, especially when we're talking about subject to deals. So when we take a deal subject to, we're almost always talking about subject to the existing mortgage, the loan, the home loan that's in place, right? But you can actually take a property subject to multiple different loans. And then we've mentioned that before, but we thought we would take this episode and talk more about the different types of what's called other liens that are on the property that you could either take subject to or perhaps negotiate off, which we'll talk about later, and how I know different parts of the country are different, but here in the St. Louis metro area, 2026 has, and I'm going to use your term, has been the wild, wild west out here as it relates to finding deals and wholesalers. And we have a new wholesaling law coming into effect in Missouri that was signed by the governor with a 14-day wait period if you're going to sign a contract. So I don't even know what that's going to look like here next month, as opposed to, because that goes into effect the end of August, I guess. So it's going to be interesting. But we thought it's more important than ever to look at the deals with a more critical eye because the margins are a little bit lower. The interest rates are still kind of high, even though they've come down from their most recent highs.
Yeah.
Yeah, the peaks. But things are still expensive. People still want top dollar, even though maybe the market's softening as it relates to the, the actual fair market values in there. So don't walk away. I guess the motto is don't walk away from deals if you see 3 or 4 different liens on a property.
Yeah.
Actually, that might be a great deal for you because no one else is going to want it. Right?
Yeah.
Most scares away most people. And maybe it is, depending on the liens, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Maybe you should walk away, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
Right? Not necessarily. So that's so sorry, that was a long-winded way of answering your question. We're going to talk about potential lien nightmares when you look at it on paper. That could be great deals for you in the end.
Yeah, that's something I learned really, really early on. And you'll out in the Facebook groups, you'll see this. You'll see people say, particularly people that aren't really familiar or maybe new to subject to investing, they'll say, you'll see the phrase subject to the existing mortgage. And that's not wrong. It's not wrong to say that, but that's not all that this entails. I mean, you can do subject to any existing lien if you're willing to take the risk. And so, yeah, like you said, we're just going to walk through some of these, maybe top level, maybe get into a couple of the, get into the weeds on a couple of them, because some of them can be a little bit, I guess, a little more hairy to deal with than others. But I will tell you, despite what anyone tells you, with enough tenacity and enough, gusto, almost any lien is negotiable.
Yep.
And some of them more negotiable than others. Like we've got our sewer district here. They're total Nazis, the hardest people on earth first of all, to get in touch with.
Yeah.
Let alone get on a phone call of any kind of have any kind of meaningful conversation about negotiating liens. But we have negotiated. It's the Metropolitan Sewer District here in our neck of the woods. We have negotiated liens with the Metropolitan Sewer District here, and also we will talk about super liens versus just kind of your what would be the opposite of a super lien? A regular lien? I don't.
Just a normal, we just other liens, but they're in. Remember, liens go on the priority of date recorded, not dollar amount. A lot of people think that, okay, there's a $250,000 home loan on it, that's the first lien. It may not be.
Right.
It may not actually be. It goes by date of recording to determine the priority of the liens, actually, unless you have a super lien. So you just talk about like the first super lien. In other words, a super lien just means that it gets paid off before anything else gets paid off. Right.
It's beyond that even. It's a super lien. A super lien does not go away. It does not, it transfers. I'm sorry. Let me take this back. It stays with the property, regardless of the owner. It must be paid off. It's going to stay. If that property is going to change hands, that lien will be paid off. And it supersedes all other liens. Hence its name, right?
Yes.
Super lien.
So let's talk. Well, you already mentioned the first one. We just call it utility liens, municipal liens. 2 different types. I guess you could have city liens, city, county, municipal liens. Like you don't cut the grass. Well, the city will go out there and cut your grass, or the county will go out there and cut your grass and start fining you for that.
Yeah.
Right. And then they could put a lien against the property for that. You talked about the sewer district. Our other utility companies, the water companies here in our area, the electric companies, they don't typically put liens against your property. I guess they could, but it would have to be a pretty significant amount. Usually they work with you. I've noticed they work with you a lot more before it gets to the point of potentially putting a lien against the property. So
generally what they do, what I find the utilities do is they actually sell that debt off. If you owe, I don't know, $600 or $700 on a utility that doesn't get paid off when you sell that property, generally speaking, if it goes unpaid, they will just sell that debt to a collection agency and then you've got that whole that whole rabbit hole you can go down about
Yeah.
if that's a you know a viable debt once they've sold it. But um, yeah, they generally, but the municipal liens, and this can definitely vary, I think, from municipality to municipality, from county to county. Um, what would be considered in your area? It's like what would be considered a super lien in your area, rather, because I don't know the legalities of the different markets out there. So
Yeah, some might be, some might not be. You're right. It just
right,
depends on your area.
yeah,
But can we just talk a second about, let's talk about the municipal liens. So utility liens are generally easier to negotiate if they even put it on there, with the exception, at least in our area, of the sewer district that you mentioned.
mm-hmm.
And the sewer district, by the way, so the title companies now, there was some, I don't know, there was some kind of, I guess we'll say county code or something that was put in place, and the title companies here in the area go to MSD, the sewer district, and they have to get those dollar amounts. So they're definitely in a super lien position. I don't know how that happened exactly in
Well,
there, but that changed about, I noticed about what, a handful of years ago. That never used to happen like that until more recently. So
yeah,
something changed with the code. But let's talk about the city. So you're not cutting your grass, like the property is vacant or whatever. You're not cutting your grass in the city. A lot of people might say, and this might be true, that the city doesn't want your money from the fines. Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think the city wants your money from the fines. Like every municipality is hurting, just like, I mean, they want every dime they can. Would they be willing to take it off there if it meant that the property is going to a new owner that's going to take care of it? Maybe. Of
maybe.
course, these might not be large dollar amount ones. It might be a couple $1,000s or something like that. So you might even be able to negotiate too. But I don't think you should go in with the mindset that the $2,000 city lien is going to be taken off there just because you know, they just want somebody to take care of the property. No, they want your $2,000 too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in kind of a unique position here in our neck of the woods. I mean, we have 86 different municipalities. That's more. I think that's more than Los Angeles has.
Yeah.
It's wild, but and every single one of them have different rules, and every single one of them are either really easy to deal with or really really difficult to deal with, or somewhere in between. So it's just kind of getting to know getting to know the area, and how these different little municipalities how they operate. And there's municipalities here that I simply will not work in,
Yeah.
because they're
For
so
sure.
hard to deal with.
Just stupid.
And then
Yeah.
there's
Just
other ones that
stupid.
I've been told, when I started this back in 2015, well, you don't want to work in this municipality because they're super hard to deal with. And then, I took my chances, bought a property there, and turns out they were
Just fine.
a joy to work with. They were awesome. But
Yep.
so let's move on to some of the, and I've told this story before, but this is a big one that a lot of people miss. They miss this one a lot. And these are Medicaid, Medicare liens. They're estate recovery claims. And in fact, I think I talked about this just a couple of weeks ago, or prior to us heading down to Cabo. Medicaid, Medicare liens are a different animal because they have what's called a look-back period. It's a 5-year look-back period. So what they will do is, if someone is drawing on Medicare Medicare benefits, and they have let's say it was 3 years ago, they sold a property and they made X amount of dollars. They made $15,000-$20,000. What Medicare is going to do, they are going to attempt to recover as much of that, as much of the dollar amount for the care that the individual is getting. They're going to try and recover that money from the property that they sold, 2 or 3 years ago. It seems really unfair, to me at least. but that's what they do, and they do have the ability to do that. And I had a rehab that I was doing. Again, I'm going to kind of rehash this a little bit. I had a rehab I was doing, and went through title, everything. We closed on it. We bought it subject to. We closed on it. We got a title policy on it, whole 9 yards. And somehow, some way, when we went to sell that property, it turned out that there was an $80,000 lien, Medicare lien, um, on that property that was found through the title search. And $80,000 is on this particular, the whole value of the home, I think, was 235 or something like that. So to have an $80,000 lien on this property, we would have had to come to the closing table with $40,000 or something like that to pay that off. But what we ended up doing was we called them up, we negotiated, we explained the kind of the situation and where we were at, and where the recipient was at, for the recipient in the that was getting the Medicare benefits. And they reduced that that $80,000 lien down to $8,000, which was much more manageable. Although we still lost out on that $8,000, it sure did beat having to come to the table with $40,000. So it's a big one. It's one of those ones that, like I said, we went through title. We got a title policy on that property. It was just one of those ones that it can creep up and it can bite you in the end. So just be careful about who you're talking to. Find out all the information you can about the owner of the property. If they're going into a nursing home or something like that, you're definitely going to want to maybe even seek some legal advice on that, because, like I say, that 5-year look back period, it doesn't matter to the organizations that manage Medicare in your state. It does not matter to them. If there was a transfer of that property or transfer a deed, they do have the option to attach a lien to it. So anyway, I've spent enough time on that.
Yeah, well, this is just where I'm going to put that plug in for. You mentioned transferring title. This is yet another reason why we love trusts, right?
1,000%. Yep.
Because if you transfer the title, so technically you're transferring title from, Mary Smith to the trust, right? Or, I like to do the Main Street Preservation Trust or something like that. So it doesn't, it's a little ambiguous as to what's going on with the trust, but just, it doesn't raise the red flags. Like, people, especially, this happens a lot when people enter assisted living and nursing homes and they're getting some type of assistance to pay those monthly bills, right? And so they'll look back to see if they have any assets. They want to get, you have to give up all your assets, right, in order to move over to the thing. So that's what that look back period happens a lot. Yep. to get the people. So just be careful when you're doing that. And a lot of people put a lot of things in trust for estate planning purposes, especially when they're going into nursing, assisted living and all that stuff too. So it's like, it won't necessarily stop that, but it just helps from the perspective of, oh, okay, well, that's just going into a trust. It's probably their trust, no big deal. You know what I mean? So it's in there. And can I just do an aside? So yesterday on a coaching call, I remember I mentioned before you jumped on here too that one of our students has a property in trust. When he acquired the property, he put it into a trust. And so he's now selling the property to an end buyer that has a real estate agent. And so they're probably closing at real estate agent, kickback title company, whatever, that doesn't understand or want to bother with trust. And so their just general thing is, land trusts aren't legal in Missouri. So first of all, for a title company to tell you that, that's completely and utterly wrong. There is no Missouri statute that prohibits land trusts. Now, it is also true on the flip side of that coin that there's no Missouri statute specifically about land trusts, like Illinois has or Florida has, right? But that doesn't make it illegal, right? You can have a land trust that's a revocable trust. There are revocable trust statutes in Missouri. So for a title company to say that, that's just either being lazy, stupid, or both, right? So anyway, that's just another reason why we like trust. As an aside, sorry, off my soapbox, but this is a great one. So I will move into, because I did a property that had a super lien on it, an IRS tax lien, which, as you mentioned, is a super lien. But it's interesting though, because you mentioned that a super lien like can stay on the property. That's true, but an IRS tax lien is an individually based lien, right? The only reason that lien gets put on the property is because you as an individual didn't pay taxes, not real estate taxes, right? Income taxes, right? So it's a little different scenario. But I had a property I actually took back. So I sold a property. This is way back at the beginning of things. I actually sold a property and I took back a second, right, to make the deal work. Well, they ended up defaulting on both the second and first. So I took the property back from the foreclosure sale, right? Or getting ready. Actually, I was talking with the first one. I was just going to buy the property back. Okay. So I get the title report and they said, hey, so there's two IRS tax liens totaling over $400,000 that have been placed against the property. And I said, well, that makes sense because it looked like the guy was cooking meth in the garage from the way the garage was cooking. But anyway, he ran his own electric company. So, when you're a small business owner, it's easy to run afoul into all kinds of tax consequences from your business if you're not doing that stuff right. And clearly he was incompetent as it relates to that business stuff. So anyway, I was like, okay, the property at the time is a $175,000 property. So there's no way that you could pay off those liens. So the title company, actually on my behalf, I didn't even actually negotiate it. So the title company actually sent the information, and there's actually a form. It's IRS Form 14135, which is a certificate of discharge of the federal tax lien. And they removed it. There was no negotiation. No, they removed it. I said, because the argument was, this isn't my lien. This is an individually based lien. The property can't even pay for it. And nobody's getting any money. I'm just taking the property back from the foreclosure. This isn't foreclosure. Like, nobody's getting any money from all this. And the IRS removed the liens.
Yeah, because people see IRS and they just think, oh my gosh, that's so big and so it's big.
There's no hope. Yep.
Yeah, and they're they just don't think that there's they don't think the option is available to them to have that lien discharged or even discounted, which usually the IRS is. I mean, admittedly, they're going to be very, very strict. I think the criteria for that discharge is that is, like you said, no money is to be made on the property. The senior mortgage balance is it either meets or exceeds the current market value. So it can totally be done. I've never really seen one, to be honest. I've never really seen one negotiated down because, I mean, first of all, that's going to involve the individual who the lien was levied upon, and so they're the ones that are going to have to deal with it. You really have no legal authority unless you're an attorney and representing that individual to go in and negotiate that lien. But it is something that you can. It is a strategy that you can offer your seller. Say, hey, I've got this attorney. If you'd like to talk to him about possibly negotiating this IRS lien down and paying it off all in one fell swoop with the proceeds from this house, you might be able to still pick up a pretty good deal.
Yep. It does take a little more work. See, yes. So that's the downside. So some investors like
you can do about it. Yeah. There's nothing that you can't call the IRS on behalf of. I mean, it's not like a Medicare lien where I was the new owner, and I was trying to flip this property. I was trying to sell this property, and I was able to call them up and say, hey, because that lien was attached to the property. So it didn't matter who the owner was at that point. The lien was attached to the property, and it must have been paid off. And since I owned the property, I was able to call. In this case, it was Missouri Health Net. I was able to call and negotiate that lien down.
Yep. Yeah, but don't be scared. And I think one of the reasons the IRS was so willing to remove those liens is because they couldn't find the guy.
Mm.
We happen to know where he was and how to find him. So I don't know if that was a key thing to say, oh, okay, well, we didn't know, we can't get a hold of him. Well, here's the information to go, like, go right now and find him. So
Yeah.
whatever, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So now we talked a little bit about the super liens. I guess, again, depending on your state, what your state laws are, there is one other type of lien that could maybe be a super lien. It's HOA, condo association, homeowners association could be. It again just depends on your particular state laws, but that could be another one.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on a minute. In that case, though, HOA, it's usually written into.
It might be. Well, it might be. It just depends. It might be in the HOA covenants. There might be a state law governing what you can and can't do to a certain extent with the HOA covenants. So,
also might be in your deed of trust.
It might be.
Might be a deed restriction. Yeah. So
yes, as a deed restriction. So this is why. This, as just another reminder, this is why you need to have good quality title companies that can pull this information for you in detail, especially as it relates to the HOA, and say, okay, well, there's this HOA, like, is this HOA a super liens? Regardless, you can easily contact the HOA trustees or attorney or however they, depending on how big their HOA is, I guess, but and negotiate that down. Like, again, the HOA wants that property. They want all the property values in the entire subdivision to be as high as possible. They don't want this one property bringing everybody down, right? So they are an entity that would theoretically be much more willing to negotiate a lien down so that the property is being taken care of to the standards, to whatever standards they deem appropriate.
Yeah, and by the way, out of all of these that we've talked about thus far, first of all, the HOA is by far the worst entity to deal with, I think, in my opinion.
Depends. Yes, they could be. Yeah.
And they're the most likely to actually move forward with some sort of foreclosure, because they have the ability to do that. Some sort of beyond the lien, they can actually foreclose on the property, which most of these liens can foreclose on them if there's a change in title. But an HOA, they're like super Nazis. They're just like, I don't know. I just at
a certain point, right? They don't have to foreclose, but they certainly can.
Yes.
If you're an ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the original seller that got into that mess, like they're done with them. Like they can really go out of their way to make life difficult for you. They typically, unless it's a really large dollar amount, I mean, they typically won't, because they know at some point in time somebody's gonna have to pay it, right? Or they're gonna get paid something at some point in time with this property. So unless they really want you out of the neighborhood, which could be the case, right? Yeah. They might be willing, but the bigger the HOA, the more bullshit they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Mentioned Florida, that's HOA heaven down there. It's pretty wild what goes on down there. But all right, so let's talk I guess a little bit more. There's another type of lien that I have a recent experience with. My daughter figured this out, but there's something called a PACE lien. It's a property assessed clean energy. It's usually funded through it's usually funded through, well, it can be funded, not usually, but it can be funded through a government entity. And so and these would be things for like this would be solar panels or high energy HVAC systems, and they're directly attached to your property tax assessment. And so you pay these back through, essentially you pay them back through an escrow process. So when you send in your escrow payment every month with your principal and interest, a portion of that special assessment goes back to the government to help pay it back. The problem with these, and the problem that we experienced, was that when my daughter got this, she had a solar system on her house. The problem with it is there's a certain residency requirement. You have to live in the property for, X amount of years. Usually it's something like 5 years, 10 years, something like that. And and if you end up selling the property, you don't live there for 5 or whatever that time frame is, all of those monies and all the money that you have put into it plus interest is due when you sell that property. And so that can really inhibit someone from prevent them from selling a property and actually making any money on it. It also prevents you from becoming the buyer of that property in some cases, unless the deal can support whatever that balance is. It can prevent you from actually doing the deal. So it's something to look out for. I think we see it, I don't know, maybe pretty low percentage of the time. It's pretty rare, but it does exist, and it is a nuisance. It is a problem. So
I
you have
see
to look out for it.
Yeah, I see the especially the solar panel stuff. I see the solar panel liens on Sub2 deals a lot in the southern states. Texas,
Yes,
Alabama, Florida,
California,
Arizona, going through there and all this stuff too. And I think it's really specific. Like you mentioned, they're all different depending on what solar panel company you're working for, and of course there will be state guidelines as well too. So you mentioned California, so that was probably ridiculously silly with the state guidelines. But there are others. You just have to be careful about what that lien says, right? Like you said, do you have to live in the property for a certain amount of time? Mm-hmm. Is it transferable? Is there a fee to transfer it? Right. Is there a penalty? Like, what is all the situation? I think many of them are readily, I'll just say assumable, sub-2able, are readily sub-2able. But not all of them. So, right, you got to be very careful about that. And you got to make sure this is part of the due diligence. You need to get that damn solar panel agreement, right, the terms and conditions of that agreement, and read it so that you know what's going on with that, by the way. You just don't take somebody's word for it.
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where when you ask from the government, you're going to get the help that you exactly asked for.
Yeah. This might be one of those times, actually. Yeah. So one out of every 10 ain't bad, right?
So I would, I think, just a personal opinion, a personal kind of, I'm just going to blurt this out, but I think if you're going to do solar panels or high energy HVAC systems or anything that the government might back, I would consider purchasing that stuff privately. I don't think I would get into bed with a government on any of those things, because it's it could hurt you later on. It's a long-term commitment, and I would much rather pay an individual, even if I financed that stuff. I would much rather pay a private company with no restrictions on the sale, other than paying that off, or assuming, or letting the new owner assume, which they do. That is that actually.
Yeah, they're assumable in many cases. Yeah, it just depends. Yeah.
So that's just a personal opinion of mine. I would stay away from it. It looks really intriguing, like a no cost system. Oh wait, you mean I can get solar for no cost whatsoever? No.
Right. Yeah.
There's
always a cost.
They say. Yeah. You think it's expensive now? Wait until it's free. That's what they say?
Yes, and and all that stuff too. That's exactly the right question. What is the deferred cost, and how's it going to screw me?
Yeah,
that's the question on stuff like that, right?
Yep. Okay. All right.
How about the easier people, more mechanics or contractors liens, right? Yep. So somebody didn't get paid. And by the way, we'll just take a side note here. There's a lot of fraud in this area. There's a lot of people that just put mechanics liens or whatever on properties. So you got to be careful. got to be careful of this. We actually have a notice of intended sale. It's actually Missouri law. You're supposed to serve notice on record that you intend to sell the property within 45 calendar days in there, which then gives notice to any potential person that might have an interest or a potential lien against that property. And if they don't do anything within the 45 days, they're out of luck. Now, a lot of people don't do that, right? And don't file, they just call it the NOIS here in Missouri, don't file it, which means you got to go through the whole process of the title company wants to see, okay, especially if you rehab the property, they want to see the paid receipts and they want all the lien waivers from the contractors. And so you just know that you got to go through all that process.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Admittedly, I'm bad. I'm so used to, because the NOIS didn't, or the notice of intended sale didn't become a thing until I was about halfway through this journey. You know, it wasn't the norm. And so I would it just wasn't really required by title companies. And so I admittedly, I lean on, well, I lean on people like you to put a give me a good swift kick in the butt and get that thing filed. But and you mentioned the fraud that happens with this. This is very common. I mean, we see this all over Facebook, in all the Facebook groups, people filing mechanics liens. And to kind of combat that, and I don't know, I'm kind of torn between it because I support small business immensely, and there are just a few bad actors out there that are, that may not have finished a job that they didn't get paid for it. They were legitimately in the wrong, but they'll go ahead and file a mechanics lien. And for this very reason, they put a clock. They put a expiration date on mechanics liens and contractors liens. And I've seen it from 6 months to 3 years. I've never seen it past 3 years. I mean, I don't know. And this is state by state. In Missouri, it's usually just a year. It's a year. That's how much time they have to be able to collect on it. But just know that a mechanics lien, in my opinion, is one of the easiest liens to
for sure
to negotiate. Yep. If you really think about this, let's say it's a $10,000 lien, and if you turn around, you offered them, say, $2,000 or $3,000,
yep,
30 cents on the dollar. It's as my old mentor used to say, a little bit of something's better than a whole lot of nothing. And and a lot of times they will accept it. They're one of the easier liens to negotiate down.
Yep, for sure. They just, you're right. They just want something.
Yeah. So. Yep. And by the way, if you sell that property with that lien, if you purchase that property rather with that lien in place, that mechanic or contractor's lien has every bit the amount of weight that a super lien has. They can foreclose on that property to be paid. And it's a real thing. It doesn't happen very often. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen it happen. If I'm being honest, I don't think the contractors actually know that's
well, they don't want to go through the expense. So, like you said, for it's going to cost them another $4,000 or $5,000 to foreclose on a $5,000 mechanics lien. Like, it's not worth it. So, but it is one of the easier ones to do, and you could also pay. So let's say you're getting this property subject to, and you're going to do it, and it's a flip. Like, you're not gonna, you could just tell that contractor and just say, I'm going to take this lien, 5,000, whatever it is, this lien in there, but I'm going to pay you off at the end. So just know that I'm going to be the new owner, and when I update and flip this property, that's when you'll get paid, right? So you don't have to necessarily give them anything out of pocket or negotiate it and pay it later. Like, there's all kinds of things. They're much more willing to do things like that than other types of lien holders.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. For sure. What else we got here?
Well, we've got the
time here.
Yeah, we've got the I just call these the judgment liens.
Yeah.
These are typically, again, going back to the personal, like an IRS is a personal, you did that personally to get to get that lien. Well, you can also do that when you don't pay your credit cards. The credit cards will get a personal judgment against you. And in order to try to get paid, they can attach that judgment to any asset you have. Well, your biggest asset is typically your real estate. They can also just interestingly, they can attach it to your car. They can attach it to any asset that you have, actually,
Yep.
right, on record. So the credit card company could theoretically attach it to your vehicle if there's enough room in there, and then repossess your vehicle to get their money back.
Yep.
Now, that's like more involved than just sticking a document on public record against the house, right? So that's why typically
Yeah,
you
that's
see
a
that.
UCC1 filing,
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And again, these are personally. So you can have the credit cards, you can have personal loans, other credit lines against the property. We can even start talking into the unpaid child support, all kinds of those things, like all this kind of this personal lien stuff that you can see. And now you have to go to court and get a judgment, and then you can take that judgment and put it against the assets that they own. So that's typically what's happening here. And again, these are typically much easier to negotiate. Let's say, again, we'll just make numbers up. $10,000 of credit cards. It might be 2 or 3 different credit card companies even to get to that $10,000. They're much more willing to take 10 cents on the dollar, right? 10 cents on the dollar, which is what your starting point should be if you're trying to negotiate stuff like that. Also, too, you mentioned earlier, this is always something you should do, is show them, first of all, you should always use a title company. So this whole process is insured, even if you're taking it subject to 3 different liens. In the case, you'll make sure there, but you want to make sure that they know there's no money in it for them. They're not going to get $10,000 to pay off their lien when this closes. There's no money. You're taking it all subject to. In fact, there's zero money that's going to be do that. So you just show that to these people. It's okay to do that. Just show that there's no money in this deal. We need to get this lien off here, negotiate it down, or what does that look like? And so when they know that you're trying to give them something, right, even though there's actually nothing from the deal, when you're closing, of course, you're going to flip the property later or whatever you're going to do with it, right? But at least when you're initially acquiring it, all subject to, like, there's no margin there, right, on paper on that settlement statement. So feel free to use that in your negotiation with these people.
Yeah, that's the key. Is that it's just like anything. Anyone trying to collect a debt, if there's no money to pay it, then what's the point, type of thing. So that's a really, really good point. And also, you can always try and sweeten the deal for them. You can offer them a little something if the deal supports it, just to have them either release that lien or have the judgment expunged, or I don't know if that's the right word that I'm looking for. That's not it, is it?
It's just released from the property. The judgment still exists.
Yeah.
So again, and then you can tell them and just say, hey, this guy's got a very nice 2024 Audi out here. I don't know. You might think about attaching it to that and repossessing that to get your $10,000. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned child support. I know that every state in this country is really coming down hard on. It's so strictly enforced that there's just no way you're going to be able to negotiate down a principal balance. So it's not even really worth the try. But if there is a lien attached to the property for back child support, you can apply for what's called a partial release of lien. And then that's, again, the same scenario. If you can show that if there's no money to be made or no equity for the seller, that they're going to pocket at closing, many times you can have a partial release of that lien, pulled away from the property itself, and that could be the difference between you getting the deal done and you not getting the deal done. So,
Yep.
All right, what else we got?
I think that's it. I think we
Oh,
went through the liens. We circled back around to the kind of the personal ones. And again, when you personally get the lien, like you're personally responsible for the lien, those entities that hold those judgments or those liens understand that that wasn't because of something that happened with the property. That was your decisions personally. So there's a big difference there when you try to about how you go about negotiating and do that. It's just like a mindset difference, just to keep just keep that at the forefront, just so you know where you're coming from. But I think, long story short, to circle it all back around, don't be afraid of multiple liens on a property. Right. Just find out what's going on in there and go one by one. Take the property subject to multiple liens. Right. You're probably the only person in the whole area that's willing to do that. So, right.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity. Yeah. I just think, just to kind of, in my mind, maybe I'm doing this for myself, but piecing it all together is, you've got an opportunity to take these liens, deal with these liens. I also want to remind you that when you agree to take on these liens and deal with this stuff, that's more leverage for you to get possibly a better price on the house, even. Meaning, you're not just going to go in and make an offer on the house and then, it goes through title and you find out there are all these liens. Now you're going to do all of this work to help, deal with these liens. No, you can go back to your seller at that point and say, hey, this is what we found. We found, $50,000 worth of liens on this property. I can help you deal with it, but I gotta have a better price. It's a negotiating tool. And then in the meantime, if they agree to that and you still have the property on a contract, now you've got these liens that you can potentially negotiate down and get an even better price.
Yep.
So it's one of those things. If you're willing to do the dirty work, if you're willing to get in there and get your hands dirty, it could potentially become a really, really good deal for you. So don't be, like you said, don't be afraid of liens. They can be your friend particularly in this business. So.
And in this wild West environment.
That's right.
Right. You might be passing up a really great deal just because you're like, oh, I don't want to take the time to deal with that. Might be, my brother. How much time are you spending looking at wholesale deals that are shit?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a trade-off, right? So
a lot lately.
Yeah, the answer to that's a lot. That's correct. At least around here. So
yeah. All right. Anything else you gotta?
No, I think just as we're leaving here, I neglected to give our shameless plug. So let me hold on a second. Let me get my QR code shameless plug. Partner with us. There it is. And we can help you do all that because we do have experience with various types of different liens and taking property subject to multiple liens at one time. So that's why we're here. Partner with us.
Yeah, I think this is one of those areas that a lot of people are really kind of lost in. They don't understand that this is possible. And I'm telling you, I see it every single day. I see it. People back out of, they have to back out of deals because they're just terrified of these liens, and they just don't understand what power they actually have in their hands. And so, like Ken's saying, if you're curious about this stuff, you want to understand how powerful this can be, snap a quick photo of that QR code. Check us out over there at sub2empire.com, and let's see if we can work together.
Sounds good. And with that, have a great week.